The sound of laughter echoes across the estate. Wine flows freely. Job's 7 sons and 3 daughters gather around tables loaded with roasted lamb, fresh bread, and fruit. The oldest son is hosting tonight, and the house is alive with music and joy. Job stands at the edge of the celebration, watching. A smile crosses his weathered face as he sees his children, healthy, successful, and together. This is what he worked for. This is what mattered. But freeze this moment. Look closely at everything you see here. The children embracing. The servants carrying platters. The livestock grazing in the fields beyond. The wealth displayed in every corner. In 24 hours, all of it will be gone. Every single person you see laughing right now will be dead. Every animal, taken or destroyed. And this man standing here, watching his children with such love? His real test hasn't even started yet. Job doesn't know this. How could he? He's the wealthiest man in the entire East. 7,000 sheep. 3,000 camels. 500 yoke of oxen. 500 donkeys. Servants beyond counting. But more than his wealth, Job has something rarer: integrity. The scripture calls him blameless and upright, a man who fears God and turns away from evil. Job 1:1. Not perfect, but genuine. Real. The kind of man who helps widows, defends orphans, and treats his workers with dignity. When Job speaks in the city gates, leaders listen. When he walks through the marketplace, young men step aside out of respect and old men rise to their feet. But tonight, as the party continues, Job feels that familiar knot in his stomach. It's the same feeling he gets after every celebration his children throw. What if they went too far? What if in their joy, they forgot God? What if they said something, thought something, did something that dishonored the one who gave them everything? So tomorrow morning, like every morning after these feasts, Job will wake up early. He'll call each of his children by name as he offers burnt offerings, one for each. Just in case. Just to cover them. Just to make sure that if they sinned, even in their hearts, they'd be forgiven. That's the kind of father Job is. Protective. Prayerful. Maybe a little worried. He fears losing what matters most, though he'd never admit it out loud. He just doesn't know how soon that fear will become reality. The party winds down. His children embrace before heading to their own homes. Job watches them leave, one by one, disappearing into the night. He whispers a quiet prayer of thanks, then turns toward his own house. The stars above are bright and clear. The air is cool. Everything feels peaceful. Settled. Safe. But someone is watching Job tonight. Someone far beyond the stars, in a realm Job can't see. And that someone has a question that will cost Job everything he loves. Dark clouds begin forming on the horizon, though Job doesn't notice them yet. A storm is coming. Not the kind you can see. The kind that destroys from the inside out. And that question? It's about to shatter Job's entire world. What happens when God and the devil make a deal, and you're the subject? The throne room of heaven. Impossible to describe, yet Scripture gives us a glimpse. Angels present themselves before the Lord, standing in perfect order, radiating light. The atmosphere vibrates with holiness, power, and presence. And then, among them, someone else appears. Someone who doesn't belong but somehow has access. Satan. The adversary. The accuser. God speaks first. His voice fills the space, not with anger, but with something almost like pride. Have you considered my servant Job? Notice that. My servant. God brings Job up. He's pleased with him. Delighted, even. There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil. Job 1:8. It's the ultimate compliment from the creator of the universe. Job has no idea this conversation is happening. No idea he's being held up as the example of genuine faith. But Satan doesn't see it that way. He circles slowly, his response calculated and cold. Does Job fear God for nothing? Let that question hang in the air. It's not just about Job. It's about every believer who's ever lived. Satan is essentially saying, of course Job worships you. Look at what you've given him. A hedge of protection around him, his house, everything he owns. You've blessed the work of his hands. His flocks cover the land. He's rich. He's healthy. His family is perfect. Remove all that? He'll curse you to your face. It's a devastating accusation. Satan is claiming that Job's faith is transactional. That humans only love God when life is good. That worship is just a business deal, blessings in exchange for obedience. The silence that follows is heavy. Then God responds. And what he says will change Job's life forever. Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. Read that again. God gives Satan permission. Permission to touch Job's possessions, his wealth, his servants, even his children. The only boundary? Job's life itself must be spared. Why would God do this? Why allow such devastation? Because Satan's question demands an answer. Does genuine, unconditional faith exist? Can someone love God not for what he gives, but for who he is? Can worship survive the loss of everything? Job is about to become the proof. Satan doesn't waste time. He leaves the throne room immediately, and as he descends toward earth, storm clouds begin gathering over the land of Uz. The wind picks up. The temperature drops. Something evil is coming. Job, sleeping peacefully in his home, has no idea that his name was just spoken in the courts of heaven. No idea that a cosmic wager has been made. No idea that everything he loves is about to be stripped away, not because he did something wrong, but because he did everything right. Sometimes the greatest tests don't come from failure. They come from faithfulness. Satan moves across the earth like a predator, eyes locked on his target. He's been given authority, and he's going to use every bit of it. Raiders are already moving into position. Fire is gathering in the sky. The wind is swelling, building, preparing to strike. Job's children are laughing at another feast, completely unaware. His servants are tending the flocks, going about their daily work. Everything appears normal. But the messengers are already on their way. 4 disasters. 4 messengers. 1 impossible day. And Job? He has no idea what's coming. 4 messengers. 4 disasters. 1 impossible day. Job is at home when the first messenger arrives, running, out of breath, wild-eyed with panic. Dust covers his clothes. Blood stains his tunic. The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans attacked. They took them all and struck down the servants with the sword. Job's mind races. The oxen, 500 yoke. Gone. The donkeys, 500. Stolen. And the servants tending them? Dead. All of them. The messenger's voice cracks, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Before Job can even process this, before he can speak or react or pray, another messenger appears. This one's face is blackened, his clothes singed, his eyes wide with horror. The fire of God fell from heaven. It burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. Fire from heaven. Not lightning. Not an accident. Divine fire. 7,000 sheep, incinerated. The shepherds who cared for them, burned alive. The smell of death hangs in the air. And I alone have escaped to tell you. That phrase. Over and over. I alone escaped. Do you hear it? Each messenger, the only survivor. each one forced to carry the news of total destruction. Job's legs weaken. His wealth is evaporating before his eyes. But these aren't just assets. These are people. Men he knew by name. Families who depended on him. And they're gone. He's still reeling when the third messenger bursts through the door. Bleeding. Limping. Gasping for air. The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and raided the camels. They took them and struck down the servants with the sword. 3,000 camels. An entire caravan's worth. More servants murdered. More families destroyed. And I alone have escaped to tell you. 3 disasters in minutes. Job's financial empire is collapsing. His reputation as the wealthiest man in the East? Shattered. Everything he built, everything he stewarded, everything he managed with such care, gone. But he's still standing. Still breathing. His family is safe. His children are together at his oldest son's house, probably finishing their feast right now. They're okay. The 4th messenger appears. This one is different. He's not running. He's stumbling. His clothes are torn. His face is pale, drained of color. When he opens his mouth, the words barely come out. Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. Job's heart stops. No. Please, no. And behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. No. God, no. Not them. Take everything else. Not them. And it fell upon the young people, and they are dead. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. And I alone have escaped to tell you. 7 sons. 3 daughters. 10 children. All gone. In one moment. One wind. One collapsing house. Job's knees hit the ground. His hands reach up and tear his robe, the customary sign of mourning, but also the physical expression of a soul being ripped apart. He grabs a blade and shaves his head, another act of grief so profound that words can't contain it. He falls face first to the earth. The sounds that come from him aren't words, they're the raw, primal cries of a father who just lost everything. Imagine it. Not in biblical terms. In your terms. Imagine losing your career, your savings, your home, and every single one of your children in one afternoon. Imagine 4 people showing up at your door, one after another, each one delivering news worse than the last. What would you say? What would you do? Would you still believe in a good God? Job lifts his head. His face is wet with tears, covered in dust and ash. His voice is broken, barely a whisper, but the words that come out will echo through history. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away, blessed be the name of the Lord, Job 1:21. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Not why did you do this? Not I'm done with you. Not this isn't fair. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Satan's accusation was wrong. Job didn't curse God. He worshipped him. Even in the ashes. Even in the grief. Even when nothing made sense. But Satan wasn't done. He had one more card to play. One final test that would push Job beyond anything he'd endured so far. Because losing everything is one thing. But what happens when your own body becomes your prison? Job passed the first test. So the test got worse. Satan returns to the throne room, unsatisfied. God points out the obvious, he still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason, Job 2:3. But Satan isn't convinced. He has another theory, another accusation. Skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. It's a darker challenge. Satan is saying, sure, Job can handle losing possessions and even children. But touch his body? Make him suffer physically, constantly, without relief? That's different. Nobody can worship through that kind of pain. God's response is chilling in its permission. Behold, he is in your hand, only spare his life. Job is about to discover that sometimes the worst prison isn't made of bars. It's made of your own skin. The boils come suddenly. They erupt across Job's entire body, head to toe, no part spared. These aren't small blemishes. They're painful, oozing sores that burn and itch and throb with every heartbeat. His skin cracks and weeps. Fever sets in. Sleep becomes impossible. Job leaves his house and sits in the ash heap outside the city, the place where garbage is burned, where outcasts gather, where nobody of importance goes. That's where he belongs now. Not in the city gates where leaders used to seek his counsel. Not in his estate surrounded by family. In the ashes, alone, scraping his sores with a piece of broken pottery because scratching brings a moment of relief before the burning starts again. He's unrecognizable. Disfigured. Isolated. And then his wife finds him there. Understand something, she's not a villain. She's a woman who lost all 10 of her children in one day. She watched her husband's wealth dissolve. She's lived through the same nightmare Job has, but without the same faith to anchor her. She's drowning in grief and anger and confusion. When she sees him sitting in the ashes, broken and diseased, something inside her snaps. Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die. She's not being cruel. She's being honest. From her perspective, what's the point? God has abandoned them. Faithfulness has brought nothing but suffering. If Job would just curse God, maybe the pain would end. Maybe death would be merciful. Job looks at her, really looks at her. He sees her pain. Her desperation. But his response is firm, though not harsh. You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive trouble? It's not a rebuke. It's a question. A theology. If we're willing to accept blessing, are we not also willing to accept hardship? Is God only worth following when life is easy? Job refuses to curse God. He refuses to sin with his lips. But don't mistake this for absence of struggle. Inside, he's at war. Faith versus agony. Hope versus despair. Trust versus the overwhelming question, why? Days pass. Job sits alone. Word spreads about what happened to him, the wealthiest man reduced to a diseased beggar in the ash heap. People avoid him. Some out of fear of contagion. Others out of superstition, believing his suffering must be divine punishment. The isolation might be worse than the physical pain. To go from respected to rejected. From surrounded by family to utterly alone. From healthy to helpless. Job's faith is hanging by a thread, though it hasn't broken. Not yet. And then, 3 figures appear on the horizon. Friends. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, men who knew Job in his prime, who respected him, who considered him wise. Job sees them coming and feels something he hasn't felt in days, hope. Finally, someone to sit with him. Someone to mourn with him. Someone who might understand. But when they arrive and see him, they don't recognize the man in the ashes. They tear their own robes and weep and sit with him in silence for 7 days. And when they finally speak, their words will wound Job deeper than any physical disease ever could. Sometimes the cruelest pain doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people who claim to love you. For 7 days, Job's 3 friends sit with him in complete silence. It's actually beautiful at first, a sign of respect, of shared grief. In their culture, sitting in silence with someone suffering is the highest form of compassion. They're honoring his pain by not trying to fix it with empty words. But when the silence breaks, everything changes. Job speaks first. And what comes out isn't a prayer or a statement of faith. It's raw, unfiltered anguish. He curses the day he was born. He wishes he'd died at birth, that he'd never taken his first breath. He longs for death, searches for it, craves it like treasure. It's shocking. Honest. Human. And his friends? They can't handle it. Eliphaz, the oldest, speaks first. His tone is gentle at the start, almost condescending. If one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? Yet who can keep from speaking? Then comes the accusation, wrapped in religious language. Remember, who that was innocent ever perished? Or where were the upright cut off? Translation: innocent people don't suffer like this, Job. You must have done something. God doesn't punish the righteous. So if you're being punished, you're not righteous. It's theological poison disguised as wisdom. Job defends himself. Teach me, and I will be silent, make me understand how I have gone wrong. He's not claiming perfection, he's claiming he didn't commit some hidden sin that would warrant this level of devastation. But his friends won't listen. They double down. Bildad jumps in, less gentle, more direct. Does God pervert justice? Or does the Almighty pervert the right? If your children have sinned against him, he has delivered them into the hand of their transgression. Wait. Stop. Read that again. Bildad just told Job that his 10 children deserved to die. That their deaths were God's judgment for their sins. Imagine hearing that. Your children are gone, and someone you thought was your friend tells you they had it coming. Job's response is restrained considering the circumstances. How long will you torment me and break me in pieces with words? But they don't stop. Round after round, they pummel him with the same accusation: you're suffering because you sinned. Confess. Repent. Stop claiming innocence. Zophar is the harshest. Know then that God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves. They've constructed a neat theological box: suffering equals sin. Prosperity equals righteousness. There are no exceptions. And since Job is suffering catastrophically, he must have sinned catastrophically. The math is simple. But the math is wrong. Job knows it. He knows he's not perfect, but he also knows he didn't do anything to deserve this. He's not being punished. Something else is happening, something he can't understand, but it's not divine retribution for hidden sin. So he pushes back. Hard. Miserable comforters are you all. And here's the thing, his friends genuinely believe they're helping. They think they're defending God's justice. They think they're protecting the integrity of divine order. If Job is innocent and still suffering, that would mean God is unjust. And they can't accept that. So Job must be guilty. It's easier to blame Job than to sit with mystery. Ever experienced this? Life falls apart and people who claim to love you start looking for what you did wrong. Well, if you had more faith. Maybe God is trying to tell you something. Are you sure you're right with God? It's torture. Because when you're already in pain, the last thing you need is someone suggesting you deserve it. Job's isolation deepens. He's alone physically, spiritually, emotionally. His body is ravaged. His family is gone. His wealth is gone. And now, even his friends have turned into accusers. In his darkest moment, Job makes a statement that reveals both his despair and his stubborn faith: though he slay me, I will hope in him. It's not triumphant. It's defiant. It's the declaration of someone hanging on by their fingernails, refusing to let go even when letting go seems logical. But the arguments with his friends drag on. Hours. Days. The same accusations recycled in different words. Job defending himself. Them condemning him. Round and round. Until finally, someone else has heard enough. A younger man has been sitting at the edge of the conversation, listening, watching, growing angrier by the moment. His name is Elihu. And he's about to say what everyone else missed. When everyone else had the wrong answer, the youngest man in the room stood up. Elihu has been there the whole time, listening to Job's friends accuse him, listening to Job defend himself, watching the entire exchange spiral into frustration and pain. And he's furious. Not at Job's suffering. At everyone's theology. He's young, so according to custom, he waited. Respected his elders. Let them speak first. But after listening to round after round of the same failed arguments, Elihu can't stay silent anymore. I am young in years, and you are aged, therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you, he begins, respectful but firm. I said, let days speak, and many years teach wisdom. But it is the Spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand. Translation: age doesn't guarantee wisdom. And right now, none of you are speaking wisely. Elihu turns to Job's friends first. You haven't answered Job. You've just accused him over and over. You claim to defend God, but you're misrepresenting him. Then he turns to Job, but you're wrong too. You've become so focused on defending your innocence that you're justifying yourself rather than God. You're demanding answers as if God owes you an explanation. It's a rebuke, but it's different from what the others said. Elihu isn't claiming Job sinned. He's presenting an entirely different perspective on suffering. God speaks in one way, and in two, though man does not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on men, while they slumber on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and terrifies them with warnings, that he may turn man aside from his deed and conceal pride from a man, he keeps back his soul from the pit. Wait. What is Elihu saying? That suffering isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's refinement. Sometimes God uses pain not to destroy us but to save us from something worse, like pride, like self-sufficiency, like thinking we don't need him. Maybe, Elihu suggests, God isn't punishing you at all, Job. Maybe he's refining you. Maybe this suffering has a purpose you can't see yet. It's not the complete answer. But it's closer than anything the others said. Elihu acknowledges mystery. He leaves room for God's purposes to be beyond human understanding. And then he says something that makes everyone stop and listen. Behold, God is exalted in his power. Who is a teacher like him? Who has prescribed for him his way, or who can say, you have done wrong? God doesn't owe Job, or anyone, an explanation. He's not on trial. He's not our equal, bound by the same rules. He's God. And maybe the answer isn't an explanation at all. Maybe the answer is simply him. As Elihu finishes speaking, the air changes. The temperature drops. The wind picks up, swirling the dust around them. Dark clouds gather overhead, rolling in fast, unnatural. Thunder rumbles. Not distant. Close. Directly above them. Elihu's voice drops to a whisper. Hear the thunder of his voice and the rumbling that comes from his mouth. The wind intensifies, whipping their clothes, stinging their faces with sand and ash. The sky darkens until it's almost black, though it's midday. And then, from the center of the storm, a voice speaks. Not to Elihu. Not to the friends. To Job. God has arrived. And he's about to answer. Job wanted answers. He got something better. He got God. The whirlwind descends with terrifying force. This isn't a natural storm. This is the manifest presence of the Almighty, and everyone present feels the weight of it. Job's friends fall silent, trembling. Even Elihu steps back. And from the center of the storm, God speaks. His voice is overwhelming, not loud in the way thunder is loud, but penetrating in a way that reaches into the core of every person present. When God speaks, you don't just hear with your ears. You feel it in your bones. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man, I will question you, and you make it known to me. Job 38:2-3. Notice, God doesn't answer Job's questions. He asks his own. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? Job has been demanding answers, insisting on his innocence, questioning God's justice. And God's response isn't to explain himself. It's to remind Job who he is. The questions come rapid fire, each one more overwhelming than the last. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place? Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Is it by your understanding that the hawk soars? Question after question about creation, about the cosmos, about the intricate systems that govern everything from stars to storms to the instincts of animals. Each question exposing the vast chasm between God's knowledge and Job's, between divine power and human limitation. But here's what's remarkable: God isn't mocking Job. He's recalibrating him. Reminding him that the universe doesn't revolve around human understanding. That mystery isn't the same as cruelty. That just because Job can't see the purpose doesn't mean there isn't one. Job has been so focused on the question, "Why is this happening to me?" that he lost sight of the bigger question, who is God? And now, face to face with the whirlwind, Job remembers. He falls to the ground, not in fear but in awe. When he finally speaks, his voice is completely different from the anguished defiance of earlier chapters. "Behold, I am of small account, what shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer, twice, but I will proceed no further." It's not defeat. It's humility. The kind of humility that comes from encountering something so far beyond yourself that arguing feels absurd. God continues, revealing more of His power, His wisdom, His sovereignty over all creation. And when He's finished, Job responds with words that capture the transformation. "I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you, therefore I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes." Job got what he needed. Not an explanation of his suffering. Not a detailed breakdown of the heavenly wager. But an encounter with God Himself. And somehow, that was enough. The presence withdraws. The storm calms. The sky clears. But God isn't finished yet. He turns to Job's three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and his tone shifts. "My anger burns against you and against your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." Wait. Job, who questioned God, who demanded answers, who sat in ashes and wished he'd never been born, he spoke rightly. But the friends, who defended God's justice the whole time, spoke wrongly. Why? Because Job was honest. He wrestled. He didn't pretend to understand what he didn't understand. But the friends reduced God to a formula, turned suffering into simple math, and condemned an innocent man to protect their theology. God commands them to offer sacrifices and have Job pray for them. Job, the one they accused, intercedes on their behalf. Grace extended to those who wounded him deepest. And then comes the restoration. God blesses Job's latter days more than his beginning. 14,000 sheep. 6,000 camels. 1,000 yoke of oxen. 1,000 donkeys. Exactly double what he lost. And children. 7 sons and 3 daughters again. Not replacements, these are new lives, new souls, each precious in their own right. The text even names the daughters, Jemimah, Keziah, and Karen Habakkuk, and notes they were the most beautiful women in all the land. Job's health returns. His honor is restored. People who avoided him now seek him out. His brothers and sisters and former friends come to comfort him and bring gifts. He lives another 140 years. Long enough to see his children, and his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren, and his great-great-grandchildren. 4 generations. The final image is Job surrounded by family, at peace, full of years. But here's what matters most: Job got more than his possessions back. He got something he didn't have before, a deeper knowledge of God. Not secondhand. Not from hearing. From encountering Him directly in the storm. Job didn't get all his questions answered. He never learned about the heavenly conversation between God and Satan. He never knew why everything was taken from him. But he got something better. He got God's presence in his pain. And maybe that's what we all need when we're in our darkest hour. Not explanations. Not neat theological formulas. Just Him. If you're in your Job season right now, if you've lost what you can't replace, if you're sitting in ashes wondering where God is, If your friends have become accusers and your faith is hanging by a thread, hear this. God sees you. Your suffering isn't punishment. Your pain isn't proof you did something wrong. And the answer you're looking for might not be an explanation. It might be an encounter. Comment "I trust you, God" if this story gave you strength today.